You are now listening to the Drunken Monks Podcast.
Boa noite, boa noite. Welcome to another episode of the Drunken Monks. I'm Denise Faber, and with me I have Marlo. And today we're going to welcome another special guest. Is Miss Lysanne GoddessEye Charles. She's Saba born. She's a true child of the Caribbean. Lived in St. Martin, lived in Curacao, studied in the States, studied in Holland. I mean, how much more Kingdom Caribbean can you be? She is an educator. She is the primary caretaker of a very lively niece. She's a songwriter, a writer, a poet, an editor, a bacchanalist, and now she's also a politician. Lysanne Charles, she postulated herself. She's contending to participate in the Tweede Kamerverkiezingen, the second chamber, the parliament elections in the Netherlands this coming March. So we're very happy to have Lysanne here in the show. Oh, I forgot to say she's an activist as well, mostly LGBTQ plus causes. I mean, I gave a short bio, but the bio, of course, doesn't do it justice. We're very pleased and very honored to have Lysanne GoddessEye Lysanne GoddessEye Charles tonight here with us. Boa noite, Lysanne.
Boa noite, and I'm happy to be here with you guys. I'm following your episodes as they are loaded up, and so it's a great platform to be a part of, and thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Wow. Well, we are honored to have you as well, no love. That's a hell of a resume, man. When do you sleep?
I don't. I actually should sleep more, but soon.
Soon, right.
All right.
Exactly. After the 17th, I'll take some naps until then.
After the 17th?
Yeah.
That is when the election is going to take place, huh?
Exactly. On March 17th, actually, people who get their ballots can actually vote the 15th, 16th, and 17th. But actually, the official date of the elections, March 17th, that's a Wednesday. So that's actually right about 2.5 weeks away. I am looking forward to the day. It's been a long pull since, let's say November, but actually since even before then. So I'm looking forward to March 17th.
There you go. All right.
Before we dive into it, Marlo, what are you drinking?
What do you think?
Whiskey in the green cup.
Of course, man. This green cup is going to go places with me, man. This thing is going to turn into a legendary item, I swear to God. Hendrix had his famous guitar. I have my green cup. You know what I mean?
You should sell it, merchandise, Drunken Monk green cup.
If I could find it.
Exactly.
If I could find it. This thing ended up in the cabinet one day, and we don't know where, from how, or from who. I think it was from like a lime that we had hit with Ida, like Koningsdag or so. But I have no idea where this thing came from. But we got it though. We got it, and it's fun. Yeah. So,
Lysanne, are you drinking with us?
I am, of course. How can I be a guest in your show and not, follow protocol? Protocol has been established, and I am drinking my very nice Desperado Red,
wow,
out of a mug. It's been a month plus, and I'm enjoying my first one.
Wow, salute to that. I'm cheering you on with gin and tonic, orange gin and tonic.
Nice.
Always fancy you, huh? Always like you can't just.
What's the gin? Which gin are you using?
I'm not going to make free promotion for.
Unless they pay us.
Exactly.
That's right.
Yes, Lysanne. You joined the list of BIJ1, the list headed by Sivana Simon. Can you tell us a little bit why you joined the list and why are you actually going for Tweede Kamerverkiezingen?
Yeah. Okay. Sure. So first of all, I have to say, at the onset, like when I first came back to Saba and then took in some of the things that were happening on Saba, the good and the bad, I thought like, okay, there's some work that needs to be done here. And then I thought, okay, like, well, how can you go about doing it? And I sort of paid attention to the local elections, really thinking, like, okay, that's where you have to make the impact. And of course, I campaigned very heavily for my brother last year as he contested the local elections with the party that he's on. And then this year, when I heard that the second chamber elections were coming up, I was really looking at the different parties. And of course, I had heard about BIJ1 since last year or 2 years ago. And when the party approached me about being on the list, they were like, listen, we really want to make this a kingdom-wide party. We want that the whole kingdom is really represented, and we want someone on the islands to really, who has an affinity for the issues, and we've seen you, we followed you, would you be a part of this? I thought, like, this is exactly the opportunity to sort of bring this conversation to the next level. And then when I looked at the makeup, because I asked them, okay, well, who are some of the people that you're gonna have on the list, and other than Silvana, because of course it was clear from the onset that she would be the leader of the list. I was like, who are some of the other people? And then they started dropping names, and I mean, I was like, these are not names who are new to the idea of Caribbean empowerment or women empowerment or climate change, or like, these are people who are actually anchored and activists in their own rights around these issues. And I thought, like, okay, definitely I can see myself with this group. And after we had like the first meeting of the candidates, like, I really felt it. I felt like, this was a group that was passionate, and not just for the election, but also beyond the elections in their respective issues, but also willing to engage beyond the elections with this idea of the Caribbean islands and the Caribbean part of the kingdom really having sort of an equal footing, an equal say at national level. And I think if we don't start there, if we don't get that done, like, sometimes I say, like, we're at a period where it's like it's imbalanced, and if we don't do it now, because especially of the rise of the right in the Netherlands, but also in other places, we will have much more to push back against. So that's why I thought, okay, I've presented this opportunity. I'm actually very tired because, I've been doing other things, but I cannot not take this opportunity. And so that's why I went into the elections. And then that's why, in particular, I decided to side with BIJ1 over other parties that were kind of out there.
And why did you?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
No. Go ahead.
And why did you decide to join the Tweede Kamerverkiezingen, and why not local Sabin politics, like Island Council, for example?
Well, one of the things, if you're on the islands, that you hear a lot of, in particular the best islands, but not just the best islands, is you hear like a lot, it's up to the Netherlands. It's up to the Netherlands. Like, we advocate, but in the end, we have to wait for, and say we hear a lot, we have to wait for Holland. We have to wait for Holland to see what they say. And I feel like, if you just kind of sit back and you look at what has happened since 10-10-10, you see sort of like a shift actually from authority at local level. And you have the conversations, and yes, your executive council has certain say, but what you see a lot is that the pace and the agenda is very much so dictated by the Netherlands. And I think that's why we need to get in on that level, because so much of what is decided in the second chamber and around the second chamber has influence on what happens on the islands. And so even when you talk about like the way that the islands are referenced by some partners and some critical partners in the second chamber, even when you hear about the way that, they say like for example, this is a classic example. Stacia had her elections. They weren't too happy with the outcome. Certain people weren't too happy with the outcome. And then right away they said like, okay, well, a few of them said like, Stacia should now decide to go independent. But that wasn't even what the people were saying. People were saying like, listen, we want these people back in. These are our representatives, and we want better conversation, better negotiation. We want equality. And so to me, like the second chamber is where you can actually influence that tone, and where you can actually advocate for a different way of speaking about the islands. Because I tell people a lot too, the way that they speak about the islands sometimes in second chamber or politically in the Netherlands is quite different from the ways I've heard them speak about the islands, for example, at the United Nations when they're campaigning, when they were campaigning for the Security Council seat. And then all of a sudden it was like, listen, you should pick us because we have this massive expanse of authority that stretches from Europe to the Caribbean, to Venezuela, to all, and I think so for me, the second chamber is where you can actually make some impact that gives the authority back to the islands as well.
Okay.
Marlo.
No. We listen to our fans, and we've gotten feedback that I talk too damn much. So that's why, especially if I got two queens, one on my left and one on my right, I always try to, not rock the boat.
No, but yeah.
I admire what you're doing. I admire at least the boom shot of what it could be and the aim and the goal, But at the same time, I do have questions for you at least, and they'll come out as the evening progresses. But I do got questions as to the efficacy, of it. I fully agree with you that best to go to the heart of the thing. You know what I mean? It doesn't make no sense to, and especially if you're coming from a place of disadvantage, or where my leverage is not the same as yours. Yours is greater than mine. I would like to meet you on your battlefield. But in that same vein, that battlefield is still fraught with all kinds of factions, with all kinds of consideration, things that we're not privy to, and the ins and outs of what the back rooms look like and that type of thing. I would commend you for going forward with that. But again, like I said, we're going to have a conversation about it at some point where... Yeah, just to the efficacy, and I'd really interested to know what you've done or what BIJ1 has done to be able to at least to equalize that a little bit for whoever that's going,
Yeah. Well, I think that's also one of the reasons why I chose to come with a party like BIJ1 rather than go with a more established party, because indeed, there are all these ins and outs that we're not privy to, but that we actually should be privy to. Because, and I always say this, right? The Netherlands is one of the champions of human rights, of transparency, of all of this kind of stuff on the international level. And yet, when it comes to doing it at home, so to speak, because I hate that word home and all this kind of familiar stuff, but when it comes to doing it, for example, on their own playing field, then it's less so. Then it's more okay, no, you have to know the inner halls of The Hague, and you have to know which doors to knock on. But how does that actually represent democracy in the way that we like to say that we want democracy? How does that actually help participation? How does it actually help the people that you're saying, hey, I'm actively working for, feel a part of this process? And, and one of the things that I've experienced on the islands is actually the whole apathy of islanders to this national election, because they're listen, first of all, prior to you, there was no one on the list that we even connected with for the last few years. Or the person was on the list, they were so far down the list that we didn't know anything about them. And beyond that, they never even campaigned in any kind of way on the islands. And of course, I will say this, right? Now that BIJ1 has an island candidate, all kind of things coming out, flyers coming out from parties, ads, you know what I mean? All kind of things, because now suddenly they're interested in islanders voting. But prior to that, there was very little interest. And beyond that, there was very little interest in even stimulating islanders in the diaspora in the Netherlands to vote. So for me, I think it's important for a party like BIJ1 to come in and say, listen, we want to change that. And no, we don't necessarily want to know the halls of The Hague. And no, we don't necessarily want to know how to have a shoulder to shoulder with the prime minister. We want to actually dismantle this structure that says that only if you are this, and this, that you actually get insights. If we're going to be a transparent country, and we're gonna really say we're gonna have the hard conversation, the deep conversation, then you have to make it possible. Make it possible in the same way that you want to hold other countries accountable for letting their populations participate. We have to make it possible here as well. And so, for example, one of the things that I've done, which I think also people are always what do we do with it? I've campaigned extensively in English, and people say, how are you going to do that? Because when you get to the Tweede Kamer, you have to speak Dutch. And I was indeed. And probably when I get there, we'll see what happens. But for me, it's also important that I'm not sitting there chewing up my tongue and trying to figure out, what is the word? And am I saying it in the correct tense? And, and meanwhile, other people have an advantage in me because they can explain themselves eloquently, and I can do the same in English, and they understand me. And so for me, I think BIJ1 actually encourages monolithic as we want to think it is, and we actually need to make it more open for all of the different groups, all of the different demographics that actually want to be a part of this process.
But Lysanne, you say your stance is very clear, and that of BIJ1 too. You want to make it open for all the groups, all the demographics. But is the Netherlands, actually it's a kingdom, but read the Netherlands, ready for it? Is it ready for us? And I also, are they ready for BIJ1? I was looking at the list of BIJ1. It's the most radical list ever, and probably in the world. You'll have pro-Black activists on it. You have somebody in a wheelchair. You have a sex worker. You have a transgender. You have different people of the queer community. You have somebody from the union. You have
We
whatever.
have a pro-Palestinian Israeli.
Exactly. You like
Ticking a lot of boxes.
every specific box that can be ticked.
Ticking a lot of. Wow.
And
Because I think, the party really stands for what the name means. BIJ1, which means together. Like, we will come together on the things where we see is critically important for us to work together. And we will also make space to listen to one another. You understand? And that's why I say, for example, after the first candidates meeting, I really felt like, okay, I can find myself in this group, because these are people who are they've been activists in their various programs and movements for a long time already, and yet they're making space to listen to me come in with an LGBT perspective, but also with an island perspective. And they're like, okay, we're going to think about how this actually ties into the issues that we're championing. And for me, I've learned a lot already from the different people, because they bring a wealth of experience, a wealth of knowledge. And it is the most radical list. And one of the things that Silvana said actually recently, she was like, when she first started to use the word radical, people were like, don't use it, don't use it, don't use it. And that's only 4 years ago. And she's like, already now you see a shift where people are like, okay, yeah, they're more okay with the word. And for me, I think are people ready? Maybe not. But people have never been ready for a movement. I will say that. People were not ready for the civil rights movement. They weren't ready for the feminist movement. They were definitely not ready for the LGBT movement. Are they ready for a radical movement in the Netherlands? Maybe not everybody. But thus far, at least, we're polling for enough people that are ready for 1 seat, hopefully 2, hopefully 3 in the next couple of weeks. And then I think we're gonna deliver on what we speak about at the national level in the second chamber, and then we will see.
But can you deliver what you're talking about with 1 seat? Because I can imagine that for a lot of people, islanders who can vote for the Tweede Kamer, especially, but also for the diaspora in the Netherlands. I think the thing is, yes, BIJ1 represents us. BIJ1 has all the ideas that I also hold. BIJ1 claims to be creating space for the islands and for a more equal position of the islands, but they might get 1 or 2 seats. If I go with whatever big party, they might have a candidate that they're pushing as a candidate of color, or no, not as pushing. They might have a candidate of color or a candidate that hails from one of the islands who will bring the Caribbean interest to the fore, but they will be able to be in a more deciding position or a more powerful position. So,
well, to answer that, I would say a couple of things. I was like, one, if Caribbean people opt to vote for established parties, they are voting for the status quo. They're voting for what has literally been there for a long time already. That's one. And those parties have a track record as it pertains to the islands. Maybe they have 1 or 2 candidates that maybe speaks out in favor of the islands, but for the rest, they're pretty much mum, right? 2, they also have a track record of usually placing islanders pretty far down the list. Some of them have managed to get in, and we've also seen what they've done while they've been in, which is be a little bit quiet, right? here you have a new party that said, okay, we're not only going to take a person from the islands, so not somebody in the Netherlands from the islands, but somebody from the islands. We're going to take them and we're going to put them, they're not going to be dead last on the list. They're going to be at, a pretty good number. We're also going to really incorporate that person's ideas into our party platform. So together, Quincy and I spent a lot of time working on the best segment and the kingdom segment of the party program.
Quincy
Gadio, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna mention Quincy in a minute.
Shout out to Quincy.
Yes, exactly. So not only that, like they actively seek out answers to their questions about the Caribbean aspect, and they've committed to doing that post elections, and also really advocating on the floor of the second chamber and asking questions about what's happening in the Caribbean part of the kingdom. So I think if people still opt to go with established parties, it's because they haven't really been paying attention to what's been happening before, that's one, and actually to what is being said now. And for me, again, like I think it's important that Caribbean people participate at the national level. So I'm never gonna kind of diss any of my fellow Caribbean people. In fact, across all of the parties, I'm happy that you guys have taken up the mantle as well to speak for the Caribbean. I will just speak to the people who are potentially intending to vote both on the islands and in the diaspora, and just say, like, listen, when you are going to vote, look at those parties that you're going to vote for and ask them for their receipts on the Caribbean. Ask them for their receipts. And if the receipts don't add up, that's not the list for you. And if you look at BIJ1, you see, for example, it's a list of Caribbean people for the most part. I believe that when I did the last check, there were like 11 out of the 18 people who had Caribbean background. I also include Suriname in the Caribbean because I'm a history teacher. So I include it in the Caribbean. So if you look, you see that they have a list full of Caribbean people. Quincy is there, Lennon is there, I'm there, Romana, Savannah, Gloria. I mean, come on, it's a list for literally tailor-made for the islands and for the Caribbean diaspora. So, yeah.
Marlo's looking very sensitive. Okay.
No. I have a bit of a. Lysanne is a woman after my heart. Lysanne is a woman after my heart. She is very much. You are very much in the way of how I think of things and how I view things and how I look at things. So maybe you and I disagree on some things. Fine. But you, the person, and hearing you speak and the passion that you have, you're a woman after my own heart. But I can't square the circle of my ideals and how the world works. I can't square the circle. A friend of mine once told me that I always look at things as if it was Marlotopia. So as in that Marlo has a utopia and this is how we're supposed to work, and that's it. You know what I mean? And we are kind of bumping up on time when it comes to our segment right now. It's a hell of an introduction. So I will say good on that one. I will say though that I think in the next segment that we can get a little bit deeper into the how and maybe the why of Lysanne Charles, of a BIJ1, of how all of this works and past the getting to know stage, So if you allow us that part, then I think that we can do that. I don't know if my co-host got something to add, like on top of that.
Yeah, just the last point that Lysanne made, like you're profiling BIJ1 as a party for the Caribbean. 11 out of the 18 are Caribbean people, have links with the Caribbean. BIJ1 is very much it's very much pushing the agenda for minorities or marginalized people, however you want to term them. But don't you think that also excludes a big group? If we're talking about the issues that you're pushing, don't you think that will exclude maybe native Dutch or European Dutch, however you want to call these,
for example,
persons or other groups?
No, because I think that if you really say that you are about those issues and about inclusivity, which the majority of Nederlanders say they are, Then this group is actually about creating space for everybody to move forward together. So even though we are a list that is full of Caribbean people, there are also very Dutch people, there are Israeli people. It really is a very wide, diverse group. And so that's why I say, like, and for me, sometimes that's why when people say, oh, but we don't connect with the message of BIJ1, I say, for me, that's a little bit difficult, because if you actually say that you are about equality for everybody and not just about privileges for yourself, then this is the party for you. This is the party that says we are going to work to make that happen. And so what I find is very interesting is that people come to me very shocked sometimes, go like, I took the Keys Racer test, whatever, and actually BIJ1 is the party I should be a part of. And I'm like, yeah. Because this is the party championing your issue, whether you're Dutch or European Dutch, Caribbean Dutch, feminist, what climate change. This is a party that says, listen, we are making space for you here. This is an inclusive party, not an exclusive party. And so sometimes, like, when and people say, like, sometimes today, like, yeah, I cannot find myself in BIJ1. Like, you guys have so many issues. And I always say, I was like, don't worry about you finding yourself in BIJ1. You have to worry if BIJ1 find themselves in you. And if you are progressive, then yes, we are going to say, like, we hear this issue. Maybe we don't understand every single thing. Maybe there are areas where we also need to learn. But we are going to, if it's a progressive issue, we are there with you. You understand? If it's a non-progressive issue, if we regress, and if we're going back to, some of the nonsense that I'm seeing in the media of recent, then probably not. You're not going to find yourself in BIJ1. But if you are a progressive person, not even a radically progressive person, if you are a progressive person, the chances of you actually finding another party that you say, like, okay, this party really sums up who I am, is very minimal, I think.
All right, cool. Our producers over there has said that the segment has come to a close. So I will say I got to get some ice. Don't know about you guys. And we will be right back. Right?
Okay. Great.
Guys, welcome back. We are here. We are the Drunken Monks. We have the honorable, esteemed Lysanne Charles. A friggin' resume too long for my dumbass to read, so we're just gonna go jump into it. I have a question, but it's very left, so I go.
All right, let's hear it.
Okay, but then fuck it. You know what? Screw it. Take off a button. You know what I mean? Lisa, let me ask you something, sweetheart. Have you ever been accused of being an ivory tower intellectual?
No. I've been accused of being a lot of different things, but not that. I think what people will definitely tell you is that I am very passionate about the things that I'm very passionate about. And then I just work very hard for those things. So, for example, Safe SXM, which is an organization I co-founded with some other people. People also like, listen, say, Martin is not ready for this. We've tried this in the past, blah, blah, blah. And here's 7 years later, we're just about handing over to the next generation of young people who are going to take, the organization to a different level. And yeah, no, I've been accused of many things, but not that one.
So for the viewers, Safe is the LGBTQ plus.
Yeah. So Safe SSM is it's about LGBT empowerment, emancipation, etc. Yeah.
So then, how do you marry that?
How do I marry what?
No, I very much in my own journey and in my own experience, and for some of my people who also walk that path as well. I've always seen that they might agree with you on the surface, but they don't agree with you at the ballot box. They don't agree with you in their dollars. They don't agree with you when doors are closed. So everybody is going to be outside now because the trend is to be progressive when it comes to island things or whatnot. But there's a lot of conservatism when it comes to island things as well. There is, especially when it comes to, let's be straight and honest, sex, relationships, gender roles, all of that, extremely You had a quote, and I will misquote it, so I won't try to quote it, but I will try to bring it forward. Is that you said in an article? I think it was from Afro National Man magazine or something. It was the fact that you said that it's weird because I get discrimination at home being the islands, for LGBTQ stuff heavy, but then when I go to Holland, it's free. But then when I go to Holland, I get discrimination heavy for being black, and then LGBTQ stuff goes by the wayside, or is like given like a free pass. That one side of that equation interests me a lot when it comes to down these parts, because that's what we know. How do you square that circle of we are progressive? And by the way, progressive things means if you're fighting for black people, you're fighting for gay people, you're fighting for LGBTQ, everything else is one big fight because we're all human. But it's hard to explain that to a regular person, or it's hard to explain that just being 1, 2, 3 or whatever, because their own baggage, their own faith, their own whatever gets in the way. They will be with you on the fight for equality when it comes to black people, but you tell them about their gay cousin, their gay uncle, their gay whatever, either the conversation goes down or it gets defensive. So I wonder how you thread that needle. You know what I mean?
Well, I think it's about having those conversations and being willing to not necessarily get defensive, and being about 15 years in this journey, especially about LGBT issues. But even before that, if I think back to like, just feminism. When I was younger, I was very much like, very pro women and women first. And like that also created lots of tensions and conversations in my family. But it's about having those conversations and be willing to say, okay, like I'm hearing where you're at, but this. And it's about doing the work and doing the research, but then not beating people up with what you know. Like saying, like, okay, well, did you consider this? Or did you consider that? Or where can we meet? And it's not always easy. And I don't think it's ever going to be easy. So
I'm taking notes.
Because I think you also have to, like I wrote recently on Facebook, there was something about like, like people, like it was like, someone was tired of campaigning for LGBT issues or whatever, they were tired. And I was like, so imagine campaigning for LGBT issues, women issues, black issues, Caribbean issues, language issues. Of course you get tired, but it's about also like taking time sometimes, just breathing, regrouping, coming back, and being willing to say like, okay, I understand where you're at. I understand why you're where you're at, and now we need to have a conversation about how we can get you somewhere else. Because indeed, like a lot of people get tied up about, can I vote for an LGBT candidate, or can I vote for a woman? Can I vote for a black candidate? Like all the superficial stuff. When actually, what you have to be thinking about is, can I vote for a candidate that will actually champion a better life for me and my family and the family, my extended family, my community, et cetera, et cetera. So, and that's why I keep saying, like, it's not necessarily about me, but it is about what is the party platform? What is the party saying that they're going to go to the second chamber and speak about? And so when people say, for example, like, what can you do with one seat? I was like, well, what could Silvana do with one seat in the Amsterdam council? She did a lot, to the point where even the when she was leaving, the chairperson of the council said, listen, you brought a new tone, a new direction, a new way of looking at things, a new perspective to this body. And I think if you say like, okay, this is what BIJ1 could do with one seat there, imagine what we can do with one seat at a different level.
May I ask something else? And I hope that you don't find me too off. Let's say that equality happens tomorrow. Let's say that the fight is won. That's hypothetical, because law, But let's say that happens. Who is Lysanne Charles after that fact? Who is the wonderful woman behind the champion? Who is the wonderful woman behind everything else? Tell us about you, if you don't mind me.
Yeah, so I think like that's, like in a very humble-ish, I think like that's one of the things that all of my different strivings has brought me to, that, like, because like I'm never a person who says like I don't like labels. I love all of my labels. I love being a woman. I love being black. I love being gay. I love being spiritual. I love being Caribbean. I love my labels. But at the same time, I also go like, I'm not just one of those things. Like, I'm all of those things. And I think that's why too, like, as I've matured as well, I realized, like, like, it doesn't make sense to beat people up all the time, other than, certain friends of mine. It doesn't make sense to beat people up about one or two.
Talking about you, Denise. Talking about you.
Probably.
Can we focus?
It doesn't make sense to beat people up for their ideas, but it also, just looking at myself and my own evolution, and in thinking about things and talking about things and researching things, it just makes sense to go, okay, listen, guys, I get it. We don't agree on everything, but what are the things that we agree on and that we can say, like, this is so critical to our real life experience that we can move forward together and say, like, we want to make a change. And so, for example, with the kingdom, one of the things that I think we really need to talk about is this global north, global south divide, and how can we actually come together regardless of whatever boxes and categories and blah, blah, blah. How can we come together and say, this is something that we want to champion, right? From the Caribbean, this is something we want to champion. This is what we want the Netherlands to understand, to see, to hear from us, and then really do something about it.
Okay. All right. D. You've been quiet, love. Lord, man. Like.
No, Lysanne said so many things, and I want to jump on everything. So we're not gonna do it. But I thought it was interesting how Lysanne was talking about intersectionality. So about being all those different labels, if I can call it that, and also that Lysanne was talking about the different struggles that we have all struggled, and and she, especially the feminism and the LGBTQ and the Caribbean and the language and the blah blah blah. Lysanne, what do you think at this moment is the biggest issue for the Caribbean to be championed or to be fought against? What is our biggest issue for the Dutch Caribbean? And I'm not necessarily talking best, but I mean the Caribbean islands.
Yeah. So I think it's twofold. So one, I think is an internal conversation that we have to have, where we, for ourselves, unpack our origins, our beginning, and the legacy of that beginning, and what does that mean in terms of how we negotiate and navigate politics. Because I think there's something not quite not quite there yet with the way sometimes that we operate and we plan and we prepare. And I think then we have to have also a conversation with the Netherlands about the origins of this kingdom and the colonial hierarchies that continue to exist and perpetuate itself, not just in the relationship between the Caribbean and the Netherlands, but also in the way that the Netherlands treats Caribbean people in the Netherlands. Like, I think we have to have that conversation. And the Netherlands has been really good at running away from that conversation and saying, like, no, there's no racism issue here. No, there's no colonial issue here. No, we fixed it. We did our decolonialization process. Everything is good now. You guys need to stop complaining. But I think we have to have those conversations, because those conversations impact so much of what else is going on, and even our ability to talk to each other about the other things that are going on. And I feel like unless we actually delve into that very painful wound, we're not going to get very much further, especially when I look at, how things are going on Seva, Stacia, Bonaire, a lot of the frustrations that are building. And I think they're building here differently than they're building on St. Martin, Aruba, and Curacao, because there's this idea of like the semi-autonomy and et cetera, et cetera. But I think those things will come as well, especially in line of what's happening now with the COVID support. Like right now, a lot of people are upset with their local governments, but eventually that's not going to stick, I think, with the local government.
But how can we forward those conversations? How can we have those conversations?
Well, and that's where you need the buy-in, so to speak, of our parliament. So we have work to do with our parliaments, our local executive council, island councils. But we also have to have this conversation at the second chamber, and we have to have it in a really concise, strategic way. And so that's one of the things that BIJ1 actually said, like, in our party platform, we champion this as it pertains to the colonial history of the kingdom. We actually want to have a committee set up to look into it, to also have, if necessary, a truth and reconciliation commission, as in South Africa. We want to look at actually giving a lot of say back to the islands. And I think these are things that we need to have at that level. And of course, if we have one seat, and our party leader has indicated that she does not want to be a member of the government, she would like to be in opposition because these issues are actually quite important, and talking about them in this way is important. These are the ways in which we plan to, set that ball rolling.
Okay.
And then for me, as a regular citizen, not a politician, not somebody in a party, like, what can I do? Do you have ideas about that?
Sure. So one of the things that BIJ1 would like to do is to start local chapters on the various islands, because we think that this is a conversation that needs to happen on multiple levels. So one, you could, of course, become a member of one of the local chapters, but two, you could also, with your own groups, if you say, for example, because this is something that's important as well, BIJ1 doesn't say that voting is the only way to create change. We also believe that on a grassroots level, people need to become involved. They need to hold their own local governments accountable. They need to hold the national government accountable for what is being said. So you can actually also set up a committee. You can become more engaged with, holding your government accountable. I believe in one of your first episodes, you guys were going back and forth talking about the COVID measures, and then I forgot the name of the doctor now that was being...
Dr. Izzy.
There you go. So these things are important, and actually informing the community in various ways, that's also very important. Getting the community to just, participate at various protests, participate at various coming together for us, because I feel like that's also one of the things that we've lost a bit in the Caribbean, is this idea of community. We become very individualistic as we've, gone ahead with modernity and whatnot, or we've modernized or whatnot. But I think it's important that we as a community begin to talk to each other more and say, like, okay, these are the important issues. And BIJ1 really strongly advocates for that. And as even beyond BIJ1, I, Lysanne Charles, advocate for that. The more we can talk to each other as community members, the more we can find each other, the more we can find out what issues are really the priority, and how we need to tackle those.
Whew.
I know.
You got gas.
No, but I will say, because one of the things that in my experience with Safe SXM, I know is that, and even in editing my grandmother's book now, I'm seeing how, okay, this is not something new. This is something that's been going on for a while. So as a community, you might have certain priorities, but getting to execute those priorities or solutions to those priorities is dependent on funding. But then sometimes the funding agencies or the places where you can get funding from, whether it's government, they have their own agenda, right? And so then you sometimes kind of get away from either your priorities or you get ahead of your community. And I think we have to sometimes step back and also community build, figure out what the community needs, so that we can actually do what's right for us. And so that's why I say, I really also heavily advocate for, people coming together across whatever issues and talking and solution building.
There it is. All right, guys. Producer told me that we're at the end of the segment. Luckily, we're still here. No lag, no issues, whatever. Whew, I don't know if anybody needs a drink, the bathroom or whatnot, but I need the bathroom, so I will go and I'll see y'all in a bit. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. My drink is filled. I don't know about the other ladies because, I don't give a damn about them. Nah, man, I'm sorry. Guys, you have your drink? Is it filled? Is it ready?
Yeah, it's good.
Desperado Red for real, man.
Desperado Red is delicious.
Delicious. Okay, fine. You like what you like, but I would have think you would have had some earth raspberry wine type shit.
No, I've actually not been drinking for a month. I took instead of dry January, I did dry February, and Yeah, I'm easing my way back in.
Easing your way back in. All right.
That's right.
You see what we just did there? I would love to do that. I would like to have one segment where we do that. You are a talker, I'm a talker, and we talk too goddamn much. So, I'd like to ask some off-the-cuff questions, radical questions. One sentence. You get one sentence, I get one sentence. And maybe Denise would like to jump in, maybe in between that or whatever.
I want to say, what is this? I just supposed to watch the sentence?
This is the bad threesome, love. This is the bad threesome.
My God.
Where
I
like,
never had a bad
threesome.
wife, you know. Once you're done, you gotta go over there. Nah, man. But I'm saying, but let me stick to these rules, guys.
Okay.
One question, one sentence, one answer. Get in and out. All right. All right. Let me start with a simple one. What are your favorite things, Lysanne? List them if you can.
Poetry, swimming, my niece, my grandmother, my mother, my family, good food, traveling. Yeah. Poetry, writing.
Because it was the first one. All right. Dee, do you have a question for her? Do you have a question?
What's the last book you read?
Oh my gosh. Probably something by Gloria Naylor, Linden Hills or something. I love reading. So it was really good. Yeah. It was a really good book.
Okay. In one sentence, without giving up any names or any, dirty details, can you talk about your experience as a policy writer for the government of St. Martin?
I would just say to the government of St. Martin, where are my policies? Like all the work that I've done, where are they? That it would not be a statement, it would be a question.
All right.
Yeah.
Denise, do you have one for her?
No, I like your questions. Just shoot.
All right, cool. Let me go. Okay. Life on Sabre. A woman like that seems to be very
chill.
And whatnot. So is Sabre not a slow place for you, sweetheart?
Yes and no. I think Sabre is really good for me to be raising my niece, and I've got to do a lot of things that I didn't get to do on other islands. So I've hiked tremendously for the last year. Before that, I was diving. Sorry? Oh, one sentence.
One pussycat sentence.
Sorry. No, Sabre is chill. I like it. I think you can definitely find your way in Sabre. I miss traveling, but I love it. Sabre's nice.
Okay. D, you got one for her?
What is the worst thing about living in Sabre? There's not COVID related, but just the worst thing of living in Sabre.
Monotony. Yeah, it's not much. You do the same things. You're very structured, and if you don't have a flight to get out, it can be monotonous, but yeah, it's also good.
I love you.
When you need it.
I love you. Remember that I love you. What's the horniest that you've ever been, and what have you done about it?
The horniest that I've ever been. I would say this. Self-love is a thing, and I'm unrepentant about it. So, yeah, no. If I'm ever like super horny, I will do something about it.
Wait, follow-up question. Whoa. Self-love versus love with a partner.
They both have their benefits.
Such a politician.
Wow.
They do. Like, listen, they definitely. I think people should do both often.
Do both often. All right, boom.
Yes.
D, you got one? Because I could keep coming.
Yeah, keep going. When I have one, I'll just break in.
Okay. What was your most embarrassing moment, and why?
My most embarrassing, because it just popped in my head. I will say it. So someone fighting me once, and then I just had like a big fart moment, and I was like, "What the hell?" And that was the most embarrassing moment for me. Because I was like,
fart moment?
Yep.
As in actual.
Yep.
In the middle of a
was
fight?
it in front of people?
No. I was by myself, and the person like just came in and slammed the door, and I was like, "What the?" And then it just happened. I think my whole body went like, ah! Yeah.
So like you and the person know about that joke, and that's it.
Yeah, we were the only two people, and we will still be the only two people who know the actual moment it happened, but everybody can know about that joke. I'm very shameless, so there's not much that I wouldn't say.
Okay. What was the most shameless time that you have been naked, if you don't mind me asking?
Shameless or shameful?
Shameless. If
All the time, I'm okay with my body for the most part. So
yeah, you like this.
I like my body. My body has been good to me. This body has treated me nicely. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Let me see. What's a good one? What does Lysantopia look like?
Lysantopia looks like it's actually something very academic, but it's not. So I've been actually studying this premise since I was at the University of Amsterdam, taking a goddess cyborg class with I forget one of my favorite professors, but she passed away now. Her name is just escaping me anyway. But we were talking about this idea of the whole goddess versus cyborg, and I said to her, I was like, but like, what if ultimately the whole idea is that people just were allowed to so be themselves, that is the selves that they create, but actually is still their essential self, and so they're so different that they can just be. And that's what Lysantopia is. That people can
how is this not academic? You said it's academic, but not academic, but it's very academic.
No, because that's what I'm saying. Like, so ultimately is that people just show up as they are and as they see themselves and as they create themselves to be, without the whole added thing of people judging them and trying to make them into one thing or the other. So like, for example, like people go like, oh, like, Lysanne, why do you want to, are you a man or you're a woman? I don't know.
I'm like a dick Lysanne, today.
Like, you know what I mean?
I'd like to have a dick. Thank you. I'd like to do the helicopter.
No, I don't. I'm pretty sure. I don't know.
No, I mean, like as a joke, as a, you know. So.
Yeah, I know. But I'm like,
no, dude, you wouldn't want to know what I've ascribed to you behind the scenes. You wouldn't want to know, because I think that you're the Earth Mother Goddess type of person, but I have a different term.
But wait. So Lysantopia is that everybody could just be who they are, like the essence of themselves.
Yeah, and the self that they also create, you know, not just like who they think that they are, but who they come. Because like ultimately, like people go like they do this thing, right? So they go like, if you're a woman, you have to be this, or if you're black, you have to be that. If you're from the Caribbean, you have to be this. You know, like, so we still want to box people in some kind of how. To make them what we're comfortable with. But actually, like, maybe it just doesn't mean any of that. And you can be black, Caribbean, female, this, and be completely different from the next person. And you are ultimately completely different. And so they're just allowed to kind of come with all of their differences to the table.
Are there things that you are annoyed with your own side of the argument? AKA, are there things that you are annoyed with the LGBTQ community? Are there things that you are annoyed with progressivism? Are there things that you are annoyed with being in your lane? Are there things that you can look at your own people and be like, kind of white, you know?
I just think in general, everybody polices each other too much. So even within the LGBT community, even within the black community, even within the feminist community, and like in that policing, sometimes we don't make space for other voices. And I'm not saying like other detrimental voices, because of course I think you don't want to do that. But sometimes people aren't meaning to be detrimental. They're just coming from where they're coming from. And so you have to walk a thin line, you know, between knowing when to engage and when not to engage. But like sometimes it's like, even within the LGBT community, people were like, oh, two studs together. Oh, Molly. You know, like they're always aghast about some stupid, and I'm like, give people a chance to be themselves.
That one hit me like, yeah, wow.
Yeah. I'm like, stop policing people as long as it's consensual.
How does this work?
You know, I'm like, as long as it's consensual, as long as the person's not hurting themselves, as long as they're not hurting other people, let people live their lives.
Okay, so then wait, hold on. And this is more like a Caribbean thing. Hit me with your best Mac. You're going up to a girl. Hit me with your best Mac. Well, Yoja,
I have no Mac. No No, Mac. What I do is send in my hitters to the left and to the right to me and go like, listen, you check that person out. Go find out for me what's going on there.
Yo, find out what's going on. Yo,
Yeah, find out what's going on for me there. Let them know that I'm a little interested, and then they go and they find out, and then they come back with a 411.
But has it ever happened that your hitters didn't bring back information for you?
No. Or they would just bring back information. For example, the person is straight or whatever, or the person's in a relationship, and they're like, you gotta respect that. Like, man, you know?
Yeah, most of the time. Like if you're kind of Caribbean, you know, there are caveats if you're Caribbean. There, you know, gotta check in on her. You know, like she's not. Maybe she's not happy. Maybe she know.
No. Maybe in my younger years, but not now. No. I become polyamorous.
Younger years, you was what? Like you was a little bad then, or what? Like what going on with you?
Well, yeah, my frontal lobe wasn't formed yet, but now it's fully formed and fully practicing ethical polyamory.
But tell us a little bit. What is this ethical polyamory?
So ethical polyamory is when you have multiple partners and all partners are sort of aware of each other, or
what do you mean sort of? What do you mean sort of?
Sort of. They read it in the newspaper.
That's sort of aware. That sounds real Caribbean in the style that Marlo is.
Well, no, because I wanted to bring back up that so they're aware of each other, or they're aware of the possibility of each other. Because some people also say, like for example, ethical poly, that you don't necessarily have to tell each individual partner that they are with other people, but that partner has an idea that there are other people out there. So
that is some bullshit, man. That is some bullshit. Let me no.
Well, I tend to lean towards the one where everybody have to know about each other, because I just feel like that works better for me.
But I'm a point. Like, listen to me. Like, if I ain't doing nothing wrong, I don't gotta hide it. And that whole, like, you know, there's an idea of maybe, hey, it might be raining over here.
No, but you know what the thing is? Like, listen, polyamory is all about but it's about tough conversations. And depending on where people are at, they may not be able to have those conversations. So sometimes it's easier for them to just say, like, listen, let's agree that we're seeing other people, but you don't have to know who the people are, when, or blah, 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 blah. And
why is the conversation tough? Why, according to Lysanne Charles, is that conversation tough? I know why it's tough to me, but I'm interested to know why it's tough.
Well, in my experience, it's just tough because that's not how people are socialized. People are socialized that if you love somebody, you love just that person. And if you indicate that you are interested in somebody else or that you love somebody else, that's shameful, that's not cool. You're doing something that's, gonna hurt the other person. And so they're not really okay with having, that conversation or self-disclosing that something is happening out there. And even in my own experience, it's not the easiest conversation, So it could be tough.
think also, except for all the things that you mentioned, Lysanne, I think also for maybe the flip side, for the partner, also feelings of insecurity and jealousy come up. Of course, you have to find a way to deal with them, but it's uncomfortable to go through the motions, and it's hard to find ways to manage it, because I think those feelings are very natural and they will come. Doesn't matter how long you're with your partner, how much you love your partner, how long you've been doing poly. I can imagine that those feelings can come up, and I think it's tough to deal with them, especially in a fair and rational, no, maybe not rational, but fair and gracious manner, no?
But all right, but then wait a minute. This is what I would posit in front of the both of y'all. I think that both of y'all are at the forefront, if not leading the charge when it comes to a lot of these conversations, right? Is it not fair to say that a little bit of patience should be exercised with those who ain't there with y'all, who are not quite? I've tried to have sexual conversations with people, and this is why I own the label perfect, because I get lobbed at me. Oh, you're a pervert. You're this. You're that. No, I'm fucking curious.
Weinstein sexual conversations. Yeah.
I'm not trying to make nobody suck my dick. What the fuck you talking? I don't.
What kind of? Okay.
What the fuck you talking? You know what I mean? But what I'm saying is that there is a space where we're all not like, it's a classroom, and some of us are smart, some of us are not there yet and all of us need to be tutored to a point where we all pass, right?
Well, yes and no. I'm just going to jump in right and say yes and no.
Come true, Mr.
A couple of things, like, because I'm never necessarily the activist that says, like, it's not my responsibility to teach people things, because I do think that as a person who engages with learning and probably as a teacher myself, like, I do think that it is my responsibility to impart certain information to people. But I also think that people have a responsibility that if they say they subscribe to certain things, so if you say you subscribe to poly, if you say you subscribe to consensual relationships, that you should also have gone about and done the research and engaged in a certain level of self-reflection that will allow you to move in those spaces in particular kinds of ways. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So for me, yes, I believe in patience, and my niece teaches me patience all the time. Like, I think I'm the most patient I've ever been in my life because of my niece, right? And because of my students as well. But at the same time, I do think that at a certain point, when people come into circles and they say, like, this is who I am and this is who I'm going to be, that you also expect a certain level of responsibility and accountability from them. If someone comes to me and says, like, hey, listen, I don't know nothing about this poly stuff, or hey, I don't know about this the black activism stuff, or this Black Lives Matter stuff. I don't know nothing about this LGBT stuff, but I want to be an ally. Can you teach me? Okay, we can have the conversation. But if you come and say, and I'm going to talk for these people, and you should know something. You should come to the table with something in that backpack. And if you ain't got nothing in that backpack, I'm going to boot you from the table and be like, we don't have time for this.
But wait, hold on. But listen, but then, is there not a space to say that there's also space for human foibles? I faked it until I made it when I was a DJ. I acted as if I know what the hell was going on up until that I knew what the hell was going on. And there is something to be said for people that want to be a part of a community, but there's also gatekeeping shame, where whatever you want to put it, or whatever you want to have, when it comes to, like, hey, if I admit I'm lesser than, or that I'm less knowledgeable than, that there's a chance of rejection. There's a chance of, like, boy, Dread, like, yo, Dread, these people are not gonna accept me, so I have to fake, like, yo, Dread, I know what's going on, even though I don't know what the fuck is going on. When it comes to sex, that to me is a big fucking thing. Like, yo.
But I think there's a difference between saying, like, okay, I'm faking it as I'm making it to learn something. So you're learning to be a DJ, whatever, you're going out there, you're doing, you're entertaining people, whatever. There's a difference between saying I'm faking it until I make it there, and a difference when you say, like, I'm going to speak on behalf of vulnerable groups or misunderstood groups, and you don't have your facts straight. You understand? Like, that is not okay, because you run the risk of actually impacting people like their lived experience. So, for example, like, one of the easiest things I can think about with this is, like, a conversation that we're having right now between the global North and global South about visibility in the Caribbean around LGBT activism. And one of the things we'll be like, listen, you guys need to give us some space because our reality is quite different. And people will come and say, like, no, but you should do it this way, or no, you should do that. No, you need to listen sometimes. You need to listen, and you cannot fake it until you're making it when other people's lives are at stake. If your life is at stake and you want to fake it till you make it, chador. If other people's lives are at stake, if other people way of moving in their community and this and that and the other, say, you got to take a couple of steps back and say, like, okay, I need to listen here.
No, all right. D, you want to add something to this? We got about a minute left. You want to add something to this with that? Because we finally got some fire here. We finally got some spice.
No, but I was thinking about the fake it until you make it, and you were talking in the sense of sex and whatever. But also I'm thinking, indeed, you have to really be this. Even if you're learning, you're faking it until you make it in the process of learning. Still, you need to do some kind of work. Because I'm now thinking about the poly situation that Lysanne mentioned. You can come to somebody who's poly and you can say, yeah, I don't know nothing about poly, but I want to engage in a polyamorous way, and it's fine. And it's not enough to display the behaviors that you think is go with poly. Dus it is not enough that you say, okay, you know what, I'm going with this one and with that one and with that one, and you can also go with whoever you want, but only zeg maar only the action, only the display. Je moet er verder ook echt iets mee gaan doen. You have to do something with it. You have to have, I think, those difficult conversations. And if you're faking it, I'm not sure how that translates to having those difficult conversations.
Wait a minute, but hold on. But then I would actually advocate for the insecure on this particular note. And it is easy to say that you need to do the research, you need to do the work or whatnot. So, but if you don't have anybody to be polyamorous with, if you don't have anybody to be gay with, if you don't have support groups or whatnot, even though in the internet age, wait, hold on, Lisa, I see that I hold on, sweetheart. No, right, but listen, I will give myself of this much, right? I got myself a sexually free partner before I was ready for it. And in that moment, I had a choice to make. Do I like this person enough to go stick with them, or is my fear or whatever is going to get in the way of whatever? You know what I mean? I decided to fake it until I make it, by wijze van spreken, weet je? There were things where I was completely honest about it. Listen, you see your lived experience, I don't even know nothing about that. But I faked the bravado. I faked the yo, could you show me what you're doing? Could you show me what you're dealing with or whatnot? And so eventually it came to a point where that person taught me. That person taught me a lot of shit. That person taught me about myself, about what it is, about what boundaries I have, all that shit. And whether that was not the intention completely, but that's what I took away basically from it. There is something to be said for sometimes you don't know where you're at until you know where you're at. There is something to be said for you're trying to we're all in the dark with this shit. And especially, okay, now I'm gonna bring it back all the way around for basically Miss Charles and yourself. We've been cut off from a lot of our shit from what we used to do things and how we used to do things. A lot of the diaspora has been given an Eurocentric view of things. I won't even say faith or not faith, but just a Eurocentric view as to what a lot of things constitute. And you have to figure that shit out again. So you have to go back and be like, boy, Dread, do I really dig this, or is this taught to me? Do I really dig this, or was this baggage? Or do I really dig this, or whatever? And sometimes having a conversation, and I agree with Miss Charles on this one, having a conversation is the worst thing in the world because you feel completely alone at that point. You feel completely alone, like even with your partner that you want to meet with, be on the same level with or whatever, you're like, boy, yo, Dre, they're a little bit ahead in what I'm doing, and I want to stick with them. I like them here. I like them in the bed. I like them, watching Netflix with me. I don't want to lose them. And in losing them, I might lose them because I said the wrong thing. I did the wrong thing or whatnot. And so those conversations don't be held because, in my view, and again, Miss Charles, D, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's not a lot of space within the inner circle to have those conversations sometimes because of the baggage that we bring with us. You know what I mean? I will leave it at that. And I'll have you all have the last word because that's how I was raised.
I would say yes and no, because I'm going to give Denise the last word for sure. I would say yes and no. I think two things I want to reiterate is that, it's okay to me if you want to do those things, fake it until you make it, if only your reality, your life is sort of impacted and, you're bluffing but if actually you are trying to represent a group or you are representing a group that your actions, your words can have impact on their lived experience, I think you have to have a certain level of self-reflection to say, listen, this is not just about me. This is about a bigger something. And I think sometimes what we've actually lost connection with in our whole pursuit of individualism and us just doing us is that it's not just about us. It's about a bigger something. It's about a community. It's about a connection to other things, spiritual things, whatever. So I think like if it only impacts you, then do you. But from the moment it actually kind of impacts other people in very real levels, then, and you want to represent those people, if you don't want to represent those people and you're candid about that, listen, it's about me and doing me, do you. If you're actually representing people or trying to represent people or do whatever, try to do the work. Do the work.
Do the work. I think that's
the work. It will lead to better community, better outcomes, right?
Right.
And then beyond that, I want to say, I feel that sometimes, so one of the best quotes that I've ever heard is like the deterrent to conversation is shame. And one of the things that we have to do as Korean people is break up that shame box and say, like, listen, I am shameless. I'll talk about anything, anytime, anywhere. And I'm going to talk about this so that there's no chance that you could out-talk me about my own stuff. That's one thing. And it's not easy. It's difficult. So it's a work in progress and process. So I just think people have to really like, when because we go around talking about, we can be our authentic selves, or we can be our real selves, or we can get really, really down to the realness of it. We are all insecure. We're all scared. We're all trying to figure out our way to get through this life. But too often we actually glamorize the people who are out there looking all great and on social media. People ain't like that. When the lights are out and they're home alone in the bed or whatever, everybody's scared. Everybody trying to figure out who they are. This and that and the other. And the more we actually come down to that level and realize that people are just doing their best and trying to figure things out, the more we can kind of break up this box that we have to get it right. So nobody's saying you have to get it right, but I am saying at least you have to try. You have to try to do the work.
And try not to fat in front of people that surprise you.
I will try, but it happens. I'm human.
Amen. All right, boom. D, you got something for us, man? The producer looking at us mad. Fucked up.
No,
I don't know overtime already.
I had a lot of things to say, but I think Lysanne just, closed it off very powerfully. So I will leave it there. Try to do the work. No, I would say just do the work. Lysanne started out saying do the work. Then she said, try to do the work. No, do the work and be shameless. That's it. Just be shameless. That I think we should leave with, with saying, encouraging everybody to be shameless. And, thank you very much, Lysanne, for spending so much time with us. It was very, very interesting. I think we could invite you back every week because, you said so many interesting things and many things that we put a little bit in the parking lot so that we can dive into it some other time, hopefully. We wish you much success. Stemmen voor de Tweede Kamer is
hold on.
15, 16, 17?
The 17th is the actual election day. So 17th of March, all day. And I ask people in the diaspora, in the Netherlands, and also the people in the Dutch Caribbean who can vote, get out and vote. It is important. Vote
15, 16, and 17 of March, right?
Sorry?
15, 16, and 17 of March, right?
Yes, but March 17th is the actual, the day that they're still promoting. So when it actually changes to 15, 16, 17, then I will also do that. But it's the 17th is the actual voting day for now. Okay.
Lysanne, I would like to ask you to repeat because Marlo was stuttering in between, but you said vote as if. Can you repeat that, please?
Vote as if your voice depended on it, because it actually literally does. If you look at last year and the whole An Unequal Kingdom hashtag, if you look at the whole, conversations between the Netherlands and the prime ministers of the islands, vote as if your voice depended on it, because it does.
And dude, I wasn't trying to interrupt a lag. What the but anyway. Lysanne, before that we let you go, do you have anything that you want to plug? Does BIJ1 have a website? Do you have an Instagram? There are things that you want to plug so that I can put into post.
Yeah, so BIJ1 has a website, BIJ1.org. I have a website, Lysannecharles.com. I also have an Instagram, GoddessEye. That's my artist Instagram, but I also use it for everything else. You can also find me on Facebook, Lysanne Charles. And yeah, the only thing I have to plug is, other than that is just Dutch Caribbean people. I think we have to just take up our own space in this kingdom now. And as I said in my campaign ad, our ancestors say to do it. So go do it.
This is what it is. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been blessed by the Honorable, the Venerable Miss Lysanne Charles. Myself, Marlo Brown, up above me, or to the left of me, to the right of me. I don't give a fuck about this. We're going to figure it out in post. Denise Viber, of course, looking all lovely as well. Guys, I don't know, but I think that we're at the end of it, man. Toch? There's a smile.
Deuces.
Yo.
Bye.